About 6 weeks ago, as the summer was starting to near its end, I was on the phone with a member of our community. We were talking about this and that. We were finishing up our conversation, and just when we were wrapping up, the person said, "Wait, Rabbi, by the way, I was on the internet and I found this article. Can you use AI to write a sermon? How about that, Rabbi?" And I responded and I said something like, "Yep, that's definitely a thing people are talking about." But I thought to myself, this is perfect timing, because I've been wanting to speak to our community about this, and now I know it's something that right now is on people's minds. Indeed, in the past month, the topic of artificial intelligence and all it can do is the one topic that has consistently come up the most often in my conversations with friends, family, and members of our community. This is especially interesting to me because about 2 years ago, at this time of year, it occurred to me then that the topic of AI is something we should really start thinking about, something we should start talking about. Now, thinking back to 2 years ago, we remember there was a lot going on that we needed to address. And the topic of AI ended up on the proverbial cutting room floor of my sermon writing studio. But this year, as discussions about AI continued to percolate in my rabbinic circles, I learned that my colleague, Rabbi Matt Retta, did give a sermon on this topic during the high holidays 2 years ago. Specifically, what he addressed was the potential of AI to keep people alive in a virtual sense after they had passed away. He presented the example of a Holocaust survivor whose testimony had been recorded before he died. What if AI could augment the testimony in these recordings to provide answers that the survivor might have given to unasked questions? Would something like this be ethical? Would something like this be desirable? It's amazing how much our conversations about AI have changed since then. As Rabbi Retta points out, Moore's law observes that technology doubles its advancement every 2 years, and he acknowledges, perhaps this sermon from 2 years ago is now out of date. In my own experiences over the last few weeks, the conversations I have had about AI are about what it can do for us in our daily lives now. It can read, write, and summarize. It can be taught to do any number of tasks that save us time. It can serve as a thought partner for all types of creative work, from visual arts to music and, of course, writing. Now, I have to admit, I have not been an early adopter of this type of technology. Most of you don't know this about me, but when I first got to college, I studied computer science, learning to write code in a computer language called Java and logging hours of frustration along the way. Clearly, over time, I made the choice to instead study Jewish texts that are hundreds and thousands of years old, participating in a career that encourages us to abstain from the use of technology 1 day out of every 7. I'm not saying all my colleagues feel the same way I do, but I do appreciate the opportunities I have to focus myself on teachings that have been treasured throughout our generations, rather than on new technologies that become obsolete faster than you can finish studying a tractate of Talmud. I think the first person to suggest to me that I should use AI to write my sermons was my sister. She has had her moments of reluctance to try new technologies, but she finds AI fun and interesting and helpful. If AI could write my sermons, she said to me, it would save me a lot of time. I responded to this at first with an inward deep sigh in a you'll never understand sort of dramatic way. But really, in a more practical sense, I didn't want to try it because I doubted that it would work. Hearing her suggestions solidified my understanding, my belief, that what I and my colleagues have the responsibility to do is to every week and every year present original interpretation and commentary that uniquely comes from how we ourselves study a specific text at a specific point in time. But that doesn't really answer the question. Can you, is it permitted to, use AI to write a sermon? Rabbi Menachem Posner expounds upon this question in his article, Can I Use AI to Write a Devar Torah? He begins as follows. We live in an era where people are using AI to do everything for them. Teachers use it to write quizzes, children use it to fill out the quizzes, and teachers use it to grade said quizzes. Everyone feels smart but learns nothing. It's obviously not healthy. Okay, sidebar. One of the biggest concerns I have heard anecdotally is how AI might interfere with human learning. Whether it's students in school, as in Rabbi Posner's example, or whether it is adults taking on their first jobs in their professional field, it seems like the types of tasks that AI is good at doing are the same tasks that humans need to get good at doing as they learn and grow. So AI and learning, that's a topic to explore further. Back to the words of Rabbi Posner. Conversely, AI has countless legitimate uses. If a teacher has written a test, why should he not ask AI to critique it, clean up his typos, and perhaps suggest room for improvement? If the test is not on grammar, why should the student not take advantage of the tools that will clean up their writing and allow their ideas to be easily parsed? And why should the teacher not automate the tedious task of grading quizzes? Clearly, it's a question of how much and when. Okay, sidebar. I mentioned that I studied computer science in college. In the course of doing so, I worked for 8 semesters as a computer science teaching assistant. I graded a lot of quizzes. If someone had presented me with a way to automate that tedious task, I probably would have accepted it with great enthusiasm. Rabbi Posner concludes, AI is a great way to come up with fresh ideas and perspectives. It's also a master at helping us organize and articulate our thoughts. But to hand off the task of crafting a novel Torah thought, an original Devar Torah, to a computer is wrong. And it's wrong for several reasons. And he explains. First, AI is still pretty dumb. As someone, he says, who has fielded more than his fair share of AI-generated junk masquerading as original writing, I can assure you that AI has perfected the art of producing something that looks polished, but is actually pretty empty once you start considering it. It's kind of like a beautifully frosted birthday cake on an ornate platter, but the cake inside is missing. Perhaps this is the case right now at this point in AI's advancement. But we all know that AI keeps getting better at all the things it is asked to do. Rabbi Posner addresses this, saying, but what happens when AI becomes so intelligent that it will be able to present well-reasoned ideas that are identical to those crafted by humans? The problem then, says Rabbi Posner, is it's unethical. He continues, when people read your essay or listen to your talk, they are entrusting you with their most precious commodity, their time, because they believe you have something thoughtful or uplifting to bring to the table. To take their attention and give them back something that you did not consider and is not reflective of your thoughts and feelings falls under the category of genevat da'at, stealing understanding. Now, this is very interesting. Rabbi Anthony Manning provides a different translation of genevat da'at, misleading others. He gives examples. Telling someone you'd love to host them for a meal without ever intending to have them over. Selling a middle-of-the-road product while giving the impression it's top-quality merchandise. Now, when I work with B'nai Mitzvah students to craft their B'nai Mitzvah Devar Torah, as some who are here today can attest, we start with an outline. First, the student provides some background on the parasha, and then the student introduces a question that they personally have on the parasha's text and content. Afterwards, the student brings different commentaries, traditional and modern, that speak to the question that the student has brought to the table. But then comes the most important part. The student shares his or her unique insight. The student explains why this question is important to them, why they are uniquely qualified to offer an answer, and in the process, the student will tell the community about their identity, about who they authentically are. When we share words of Torah, we share who we are. And while we might be able to outsource our writing or editing to assistants, both human and virtual, nothing and no one can substitute for our personal, unique essence. Meanwhile, Rabbi Posner is not yet done with his argument, and he says, well, what if you tell everyone your Devar Torah is written by AI? Then it wouldn't be Genevat Da'at, it wouldn't be misleading or stealing understanding. So wouldn't it be then a legitimate Devar Torah? And he says, no, because a Devar Torah crafted by AI is not Torah. He continues, Torah is God's wisdom. In God's kindness, God invited us to connect with God through learning Torah. When we innovate in Torah, we become God's partners in creating and extending the Torah. When we learn Torah, our minds become one with God in a unity not found anywhere else in the human experience. In other words, giving a Devar Torah is not about generating a bunch of words or even a bunch of ideas that, when connected together, sound good and communicate a compelling message. Don't get me wrong, nice-sounding words and a compelling message are certainly things to strive for. But the essence of what a Devar Torah is about is connecting with God, about the process of Torah learning. Now, I know some of you are thinking, I know because some of you have told me, what if the thinking, what if the learning done by AI is every bit as valid, every bit as special as learning done by humans? I don't think this is a question that is quite on the table for us now. As Rabbi Posner says, we can still now tell the difference between AI and a human, but this question very well might be on the table for us in our lifetimes. If and when we get to that point, without making a prediction or a judgment, I'd remind us that a Devar Torah, that presenting one's own Jewish perspective on Torah, can only be done by someone who is Jewish. And a person is only Jewish if they're born to a Jewish mother, or a person converts to Judaism under the supervision of a rabbinic court, including Brit Milah and mikveh immersion. And if in our lifetime we get to a point where we have a fully embodied AI that can immerse in a mikveh, make kiddush on a cup of grape juice, and say the Shema and articulate what it means to them personally, if or when we get there, those will be interesting times indeed. And we're not there yet. For us, right now, the most relevant question on the table seems to be, in what ways can the work that AI does replace the work that we do? And the central concern on the table seems to be, what must we do to make sure we continue to learn and continue to grow, even with all that AI can do for us? We know that AI keeps getting better. What must we do to make sure that we keep getting better? CEO and author Michael Hyatt addresses this question and this concern together, saying, what will happen when a boss realizes they can accomplish the thing an employee has been hired to do by using AI? Well, the employee has a choice. They can panic and think either AI will replace me or someone who can use AI will replace me, or they can be open to learning and think, AI is awesome because I'll be able to use it to handle routine tasks, and that will open me up and give me the margin to add value in a way I've always wanted to, but never had the time to do. In other words, it's all about being open to learning. We must continue to learn about AI and how it affects our lives and the lives of those around us. And this learning process is going to be different for each of us depending on what it is we do. Someone who's a university professor might have a very different perspective than someone who owns a small business. And of course, someone who's at the beginning of their career might have a very different perspective than someone who is retired. But all of us, even rabbis like me, who spend our time immersed in ancient texts and attending to human needs, which are almost never routine, all of us are being affected and will continue to be affected by these changes. We must continue to invest in our personal learning and in our personal growth. What is it that we're curious about? What are the things we want to get good at? In what areas are we expert? And in those areas, how can we give back? How can we teach others? How can we be most of service? In what areas are we ready to be beginners, learning a new skill or practice either because it will move us forward or just because we want to, because we know that it will serve us as enrichment? We must remember that in Jewish tradition, learning is a spiritual practice. When we apply our human intellect and soul to the study of Torah, we become partners with God in intellectual creation, in spiritual innovation. Our intellect is not only something we can optimize for material gain. It is something we can synthesize with our holy essence to connect to the generations that preceded us and the generations that, God willing, will follow us. And that connects us to something much greater than ourselves. Jewish tradition knows that each and every one of us have unique Torah to offer, unique insights to give to the world. That's why at each bar or bat mitzvah, we hear from the student in their own unique voice. No student can substitute for another. Every person's learning is unique. Every person's learning is irreplaceable. As we move ahead into this new year together, with all the innovation it is sure to bring, may we remember in every moment this miracle of human irreplaceability. May we all be blessed to bring our unique learning into the world. May we all be blessed to be truly, fully, and authentically ourselves. Shana Tova.